Hey friend, Graham here from recordingrevolution.com. How are you? I hope you are well. I hope you're staying safe and healthy. I'm going to do a quick video for you today. I'm going to share with you my top 3 drum plugins, my absolute favorites. I've used a ton over the years, but I'm going to share with you my top 3 and a couple of prefaces here. Number 1, feel free to use something completely different than what I share. I'm going to explain not only the 3 plugins that I love on drums that I've used most consistently over the last decade or plus, but more importantly, I'm going to share with you why, so that you can understand what I'm trying to use these plugins for, so that you can use your own stock versions or you can find alternatives if there are different brands you prefer to work with. Feel free to use, again, anything you want. There are a lot of great choices here. I'm just going to share with you the 3 that I find myself reaching for the most. Preface number 2, this is not a sponsored video. I feel like I have to say that every time I do something like this now. This is not a sponsored video, so no one's paying me to make this video, okay? This is just my opinion. I don't take money from brands, and I don't do any kind of sponsored videos. So the beauty of this is, hey, it's my channel, my opinion. Hopefully it's helpful to you, and if it's not, no problem. You don't have to use this information. But a lot of people ask, hey, what do you find yourself reaching for consistently on drums? And that's what I'm going to share with you today. Sound good? All right, let's dive in. What I did is I pulled up a session. I use this on just about any drum session, but just to change it up a little bit, here's a live recording. Okay, so this is my band from church on a Easter service that we recorded and turned into an EP. We've done this for a couple of our Easter Sundays. And so this is a live recording, so it's a little less perfect, which is fine. This is great, but it shows how these 3 plugins can really help on any drum recording, live or in the studio. So I'll give you a little taste of where we are in this song, and then I'll break down the 3 plugins I love using. I've never heard a sweeter voice. It made my aching heart rejoice. Oh, the love that sought me. Oh, the blood that bore me. All right, so there's our drums, and it's a combination of the live drums, a couple of samples. But that's it. I mean, we've got a kick and a snare, kick sample, snare sample, the tom mics. We had a mono overhead and a tambourine track. And then I've got 2 group tracks here, as you'll see in a minute. So let me just share with you again the 3 that I love a ton. I'll start with, let me get rid of this track here. I'll start with the SSL channel strip. And you've seen this on other top 3 plugins before, because it is a Swiss Army knife, and it is my go-to standard EQ and compression. But with drums in particular, I find myself always doing almost the same sort of processing. So if you look at the channel strip side of things, it starts with, down here in the blue, I do a little bit of a cut right at the default setting. The SSL, at least the Waves version, its default set, the low mid frequency is at 500. So I always do a little 3 dB cut at 500 almost religiously. It's always a little bit of a cut there at 500. Then I do a dB and a half. This is a little bit less. dB to dB and a half shelf boost at 8K. Again, this is the default position on the shelf top end. Excuse me, it is a shelf by default. You can make it a bell curve, but by default it's a shelf, and it just sounds so good at 8K where its starting point is. And I just give it the little bit of boost. So 1 cut, 1 boost, and then I do a smidge of compression with the SSL compression. And what I do is I learned this from Kevin Ward at mixcoach.com years ago, and he does this on vocals, but I do this on everything. On the SSL compressor, I set the threshold as low as it goes, which is -30. And instead of like setting the ratio and then dialing in the threshold till you see the compression you want, I set the threshold as low as it goes and then dial in the ratio until I see the compression I want. And I find you get that sweet spot when it's doing 3 to 6 dB of gain reduction. So here is what it's doing, and I'll take it away. How dope is that, right? The top end, you hear the cymbals come to life and the punchiness, right? That's the SSL compression. I'll take it away again. It's so good on the kick drum. I love it. And that's just on the drum bus. So in case you missed that, I'm putting this SSL channel strip, the E channel, on a drum group track or a drum bus or a drum aux, depending on how your DAW labels it. So all of my drums are running through this little mini fader before it goes to the mix bus. And so this is a great way to do one plugin. It's really two effects. It's an EQ and a compressor, obviously. One plugin can get you a lot of bang for your buck. So I love the SSL channel strip, but any EQ doing a little bit of the low mid cut that gets rid of some of the boxiness of the drums and the slightest bit of a top shelf boost to open up the sizzle, and then the littlest bit of compression to just, since you're compressing all the drums at once, just give it a little kiss. So it's just making it punch a little bit more. And then if you really want to be picky, you can turn the output down so you're level matching and you're balancing it, gain matching it. So you're not making it louder necessarily. I didn't mind it being a little bit louder in this case because I was trying to get the drums to match everything else in the mix in this particular case. But I love the SSL E channel on the drum bus using that processing. Then I love keeping in the SSL theme. I love parallel processing on the drums, parallel compression or New York style compression. And so what you do, and I've taught this before over the years, is you take another drum bus and you just route the kick, snare, and toms to it. You can do anything you want. I've routed everything before, but I typically just do the close mics, not the overheads, so I don't get a compressed cymbal sound. You route a copy of them. So I'm using, a send here. And I'm doing a pre-fader send, and I've got the FMP, follow main pan button engaged so that with the toms, for example, the send, it copies the pan positioning of the actual drum. So if I have the tom panned to the left 48, it's going to send the send to this other track panned the same way because it's a stereo track, so I keep the stereo image intact. And I just send a copy of all those drums to another track, and on this track, what I do is I put the SSL master bus compressor on it. This is a 2-for-1. So if you buy the SSL bundle with Waves, for example, and I've had this for over a decade, maybe 15 years, is you get not only the channel strip, but you get the master bus compressor. And this is one of the coolest compressors. It's great on the mix bus. I actually have it on the mix bus on this song in particular, this live record in particular. But I've got this on the a parallel drum bus. And my secret sauce is I go to the preset and I go to the pumping preset. And the idea here is to have some heavy, aggressive compression. So here's what it sounds like. I've got it probably down to minus 16 on the fader, but I'll bring it up so you hear what it's doing. So this is just a copy of kicks, snares, and toms, not overheads. By themselves, this is just what they sound like. Oh, you hear that smack? This compressor does that so well, especially on the pumping preset. So I get that compressor smacking the crud out of the close mics. And then what I do is I blend it in, usually in context with a mix. I had it land around, it was minus 16. And what this does, when we just solo the drums, you'll notice it more, but it's really in context with the mix that it matters, is I'm going to turn this on so you can hear all the drums by themselves, and then I'm going to turn on the P drums or the parallel drums track, and you're going to hear more smack and more weight on the kick and snare. Let me do this in context with a mix, because this is where a parallel processing works great, and this pumping preset on the SSL Master Bus Compressor works great, because when the drums sound great by themselves but start to get lost when you bring in all the instruments, this can really help them cut through. So I'll turn it off to start, and then I'll turn it on in the mix. I've never heard a sweeter voice. It made my aching heart rejoice. Oh, the love that hear how it brings the snare back in, the kick back in. It's great. It's a great technique in general, and any compressor can get it done. I just find that the SSL Master Bus compressor does it faster and better for me than just about any other compressor I've tried. So that's my second absolute favorite, and they both come together in a bundle. And this is one of the oldest, Waves plugins they've had or bundles they've had. It's probably the best money I've spent with Waves. Use these all the time. And then, oh my gosh, third and final, from my buddy Steven Slate, I freaking love. I love the virtual mix rack as a concept, but if you have an iLock, which a lot of us do for a lot of plugins, you can download the virtual mix rack as a demo and then get Revival for free. You don't even have to pay for the whole plugin, but Revival is a free harmonic saturation, harmonic exciter plugin. And I use this probably more than any one of Steven's plugins. And I love a lot of his plugins. And really Fabrice, I know Fabrice Gabriel is designing a lot of these plugins over the years, but Revival is just so musical and so good. There's two knobs, shimmer and thickness, and they do exactly that. Do you need to add a little top end sheen or shimmer to something? Boom. Do you need to thicken something up? Boom. This plugin is great on drums, kicks, snare, and toms. It's great on toms. I don't have it on the toms yet on this mix in particular, but I find myself using it to bring toms to life. So here is my snare group track. So let me make sure that it's the only one. Yeah. So here's the snares by themselves. I basically bust the two snares, the snare and the sample, to a snare track. I've already processed them a little bit individually, and they sound like this together. You hear that top end air come in? Now I've got the trim plug and turning it down so it's not making it too much louder, but I think it's turning it down a little too much. I'm losing some of the gain. Let's just bring it up to a dB. But you can hear the air on the snare that this brings. Let's get rid of the reverb so it's not throwing us off. That is so cool. So if I have drums, like a snare drum like this that sounds nice and fat and full, but it lacks a little bit of sheen or air, I could either boost it with an EQ or I could add this, because this isn't boosting anything that's already there. It is introducing new sounds that are not there currently, specifically some top end harmonics that just sound so sweet. And the opposite could be true. If you have a really thin sounding snare, you want it to have some meat to it, some beef to it. So thickness can do a great job. So Revival is just one of those sweet plugins that is so useful, so musical, and it's free. If you already have an iLock and already have that, and you use that for a lot of plugins like I do, then just download Revival for free. It's just so helpful. So there you go. Let me get these on the screen. I've got Revival, I've got the Master Bus compressor, and then I've got the channel strip on my drum bus. And those are my three absolute favorites on drums that I find myself using all the time. Now, two things for you. One, what plugins are you using on drums consistently? Or just pick one. Like, is there one that you're like, I always use this plugin on my drums? I would love to know. Leave me a comment below and let me know what that one absolute go-to is 90% of the time you reach for it and you put it on your drums, whether a specific drum on loops, on beats, or a drum group. And then two, if you want to get better at mixing, because plugins aren't going to solve your problem, and we know this. If you follow me for any length of time, you know this. More plugins isn't the ultimate solution. You got to know what to do with those plugins, and just mixing the drums is one small part of mixing in general. But if you want to get better at mixing, I want to help you out. I want to give you my entire 8-step mixing checklist. This is a simple guide. Literally, it's bullets. Like, do this, do this, do this. This is I have 8 steps to my mixing process. Like, I've been mixing forever, and I'm so systematized. I don't like to just throw up faders and plugins and do something different every time. I like to follow a plan and a system, because I have to be efficient. I just have to be efficient with my time. And I have found that these are the 8 steps that I walk through when I mix a song. And so years ago, I put them together in a simple checklist that you can follow. So I want to give you that checklist absolutely free. And not only that, I want to give you a set of multi-tracks that you can download to practice mixing on and put all these steps into practice. So some stems you can download, open up in any DAW, it'll work great. And then you can practice these 8 steps on that song or any song if you want. So it's my free gift to you for watching this video. Just go to mixingchecklist.com. At mixingchecklist.com, get the guide, get the stems, have fun, practice mixing, get better at mixing. And hey, it's free, so why not? I'll put the link below in the description. It's here on the screen as well, mixingchecklist.com. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking these videos. Thanks for subscribing. It means a ton. I hope you're doing really, really, really well. And I'll see you on another video real soon.